I had the pleasure of interviewing Oren Squire. He is an award-winning playwright, journalist, and multimedia artist. He has worked on the CBS political satire Braindead, as well as the NBC family drama This Is Us. And he is currently a writer and producer on CBS's The Good Fight and Evil. He is a powerful writer and voice, and I think you're going to love this interview. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on the page. Hi, Oren. It is so great to see you. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk about being a playwright working in TV and film. So how did you come to theater and specifically playwriting?
That happened at undergrad at Northwestern. So I lived in the International Dorm, which is the southern part of Northwestern's campus, where Jones College, which is the arts dorm, CRC, the communication dorm, and ISRC are all clustered together, as well as most of the concerts, concert halls, theaters, and performing spaces. So on the weekend, we would just go there because our friends would be in stuff and it was cheaper to go see a play than a movie. And that was the first time I saw plays regularly, was in college. As a radio, TV, and film major, you had to write your own scripts to shoot them. So I had to start writing my own scripts in order to film stuff for class projects. I'm seeing plays that my friends are in, and I'm being asked to write little things for other people. And just slowly that worked its way into my system. In the summer between junior and senior year, I was working at the Piven Theater, where Jeremy Piven's parents started this theater in Evanston. And we were doing Pierre Corneille's The Illusion, adapted by Tony Kushner. And so my job was in the sound booth. I was the sound supervisor and working the board. And that allowed me to go out to LA that summer and intern. So I sort of fell in love with theater, working on this play as a sound person, hearing it every night, paying attention to the dialogue. And my work study job was at the Northwestern Newsfeed, interviewing professors for radio, AP, and UPI wires. So also I'm listening to voices, listening to dialogue, I'm editing it and cutting things out in order to make it sound succinct. And you're noticing patterns in the way people speak, and the way professors speak, and the ums and the ahs. And there's a certain rhythm and cadence, and each one is extremely unique. So all of these combined, I went out to LA, and I was reading a lot of scripts at Village Roadshow as an intern and Phoenix Pictures. And one day I went to the UCLA library, and I just wanted to read something. And I thought, well, I'll read a play. And I saw August Wilson's Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So I picked that up, didn't know anything about it. I vaguely may have heard of August Wilson somewhere, but I sat down on the little step ladder and just read the whole play. And I was like, this is really, I finished. I was like, this is really good. I want to write a version of this. So I went home, and that was my summer activity while I was working at Village Roadshow. At night, I'd come home and just work on this play set in Miami with all these characters. And it was messy and 3 acts, and it was 200 pages. And I trimmed it down to 130 pages and 2 acts. And I sent it in to ETA Chicago on the South Side. And they responded. This is literally the only thing I've written. I sent it out. They responded. I came in there and spoke to the artistic director, and they were like, this is a really interesting play. I mean, I can't imagine now what it must have read like as a first play. But they're like, this is a really interesting play. You have an interesting voice, and we want to do this as a workshop. So that's how it got started there. And then at Northwestern, the last 2 years, I was a creative writing in the media focus within radio, TV, and film. So I had to write a play. And Susan Booth, who was the associate artistic director at the Goodman at the time, was our professor. And I wrote another play set over Christmas, like a very dark family comedy about a guy trying to sell his house while his family doesn't know that they're trying to sell his house that they're living in. And just whatever, I don't know what the inspiration was, but the teacher said the same thing. She pulled me aside and she was like, this is very interesting. I was like, okay. And I take very interesting as meaning there's something there. Obviously it isn't fully developed yet, but there's something here to be explored. And so that is how it started. You begin doing that and having a certain sense of taste and discernment that is gathered by watching plays and reading plays. And you begin to understand where you are and where you want to be and where other things are, and try to work up to that level by continually checking in with your peers, and checking in with, you know, classic plays and plays that are opening up and doing well.
Yeah, yeah. And at the same time, you were also studying journalism and worked as a journalist, correct? After school, during school and after school.
Yeah, I worked as a journalist. I was actually a radio, TV, and film major. I went to Northwestern to be a journalist, and I accidentally got put in radio, TV, and film. And I was going to switch, but everyone said, don't switch. Journalism at Northwestern is so hard as a major. You can take any class you want because people drop out. But film is difficult to get into because everyone wants to take a film class. So using that logic, I just stayed in radio, TV, and film, and I took all the journalism courses, worked for the Chicago Tribune and Miami Herald, worked at Northwestern Newsfeed, and got sort of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. It's amazing. It's sort of like those twists of fate that end up helping us, you know?
Yeah, there's no way I would have gone to school majoring in film. I didn't know anything about film or the arts. I went there for journalism, but I was fortunate that that accident let me learn about this amazing world.
Yeah, I love that. And then when did you move to New York?
After graduating from Northwestern, I went back to Miami for a year where I was working as an editor for 2 local magazines, including a real estate magazine. And then I was doing a documentary for a local consultant. And I was working on a play on AIDS in the Black community for AFL-CIO and AFSCME union. And so I was busy, but I didn't really have any community or sounding board. Like, is this good? I don't know. Everyone is looking at me, and I'm 22, for like the final opinion. And I realized I don't think I'll be able to develop my craft if I'm 22 and everyone is making me the boss of things. And they're making me the boss because I have taste and because I went to a good school, but I feel like you need training and you need a community. So one of my friends, Gabrielle from Northwestern, who was a journalism major, suggested going to New York City to just go there to see plays and figure things out. And she said the easiest way to do that is to get an MFA. So it's like, that's a good point. So I applied to MFA programs in New York and on the Eastern Seaboard around New York, and New School and Actor Studio gave me the best scholarship money. So that's where I went.
Yeah, that's amazing. That is a great way to go to New York because you have a built-in community and that structure to support you as you're dealing with that city, you know, the new environment. And then after that, you went to, did you have a break between New School and Juilliard?
Oh yeah, that was a long break. I mean, Juilliard just happened 5-6 years ago. So yeah. After graduating, I was kicking around, temping, got an agent at the Gersh agency, was in the Ars Nova play group, wrote a play that was in the Fresh Fruit Festival and won some awards for best play, best playwriting, and then was redone, small off-Broadway ArcLight Theater production by a producer who picked it up. I was in Albuquerque for a year working on project with the Tectonics Theater Company about Converso crypto Jews. And while I was out there, out of the blue, John Diaz from the Public Theater emailed me. And I was an intern at New Dramatists years ago. And in New Dramatists' library, they keep a record of the interns' plays. So he had read this play that I wrote years ago, also a dark comedy. And he reached out to me and he said, we're interested in doing this as a workshop at a new company called Playwrights Realm. I was like, okay, well, I came back to New York. They did that. That was great. And it was just a continuing education, writing Nueva Canción, which got some grants and was done in small little places. And you're just piecing things together, doing these small productions, workshops, Ars Nova Play Group. I did a movie adaptation for Moxie Pictures off of a book, a romance novel and, you know, working on these little things here and there for several years. I mean, that was, yeah, that was a long time. And then going back to Miami.
Yeah, in the meantime, you're working as an independent journalist. I mean, how are you putting together your life? Because a lot of times, you know, doing all the theater stuff doesn't pay a subsistence, you know, level wage. So how do you put it together? A lot of people struggle with that.
You have to usually juggle multiple things at once, as well as temping. I actually really liked legal temping because around 2006 and, you know, a few years on after that, I felt like legal temping was in its peak. There were a lot of lawsuits going on, which was great for legal temps. A lot of corporations suing each other. You could get paid $15 to $20 an hour for, you know, most of the time minimal work. And I would ask for like projects that involve long hours, nighttime shifts, 7 days a week, so that you get paid, you know, double overtime. And then on the weekend, they have to pay for lunch and dinner and provide you with a car. And a lot of times you're sitting around writing or talking to another temp who they're usually an artist too. So for years I did this and I actually enjoyed it. As a change of pace, you know, the only drawback is you have to wear a suit or whatever, you have to wear a tie, but you're talking to other artists, you're doing minimal work, you're getting your lunch for free most of the time, and you're getting paid so that after a month of work, especially if it's double overtime, you can quit and you have enough money to pay off the next few months.
Yeah.
Also, there was a period of time, I was paying $500 in rent a month. So I could save up 3 or 4 months. But then a person moved into our apartment. I live with 2 other artists. And this person was sleeping on the couch. And I wanted to cut costs. We had an office that we barely used anymore because Wi-Fi, you don't need to have an office. So I was like, I'll sleep in the office. You could take my room. So then I just had to pay for the internet every month, which was $100, which for a few years, that was my rent. So if you're working a temp job now, that same amount of money that paid for 3 months of rent can pay for 8, 9, 10 months of rent. And I would just, it was $150 a month. So that gives you so much more flexibility if you keep your costs low and you're cutting your costs. And I had real estate angels on my side because during that whole period of time, I was paying $500, then I was paying $100. Then I started working, doing writing and producing web videos for Learn Liberty, for libertarian groups, and then for Mr., a gay dating app. And that would pay me pretty well in addition to writing freelance. And then I moved into another place and I was paying like $300 a month.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this happened, but that changes everything when your rent is $300, $100, $500. And then I moved into a apartment with 3 other Black artists and I was paying $400, I believe, whatever it was. And it wasn't, you know, the best place, but the community was fantastic. Just like the first place I lived in with the 2 other artists, Latina artists, the community was fantastic to be in a space with other artists, not paying a lot in Brooklyn. And that gives you so much more freedom.
Yeah.
Paying $1,000 or $2,000 a month in rent, you sort of, and you're a young artist starting off, you become a slave to rent. And that takes away so much of your time because you're just treading water trying to keep up with the rent. But when you're paying $500, you could work a week and get that for like a month and a half of rent. And when you're working $100, oh my God. Like I remember one year I paid off almost all the rent in one sitting. I was just like, here's $1,000 or something. Like, here's $1,000, which pays for 8 months, $130, $140. I was like, I'll pay some more later.
Yeah. I remember talking to an artist in the East Village that I met like at Tompkins Square Park. And she was like, oh yeah, I used to live right over there in the 60s. My apartment was $50 a month. You know, all of us, we paid nothing and we could create our work, you know, with so much.
So huge.
Yeah.
Having that community that you're around, especially if you can live with artists who you're a little bit like, a little bit different. So it's Latino artist, illustrator, actor, writer, and then another playwright. And in fact, everyone turned out to be Latino except for me. And then the second house is Black writers, a dancer, an actor, a singer. So people a little bit different, intersecting, overlapping, identities you share, and you get to come home to that. So even if you have a day working in an office, you get to go home to other people, and hopefully you're cool, and you get to have some sort of relationship that is based around art and dreams and what you want to do. And I don't think it's coincidence, since statistically most artists don't make it. When I look back at those two houses I lived in, all those people are still working in the arts 10, 15 years later. And I think it was the fact, yes, I think we were talented, we were smart, we were hustling, but a lot of people do that. But we had a community to go back to every night in the morning. We had people we could check in with. And so I was talking to a class last weekend, and I was just like, if you graduate, if you can live with other artists that you like, it makes a huge difference. You know, Northwestern Creative Writing in the Media program, I think there were 12 or 13 of us. 11 out of 12 of us are still working in the arts 20 years later, as writers, as directors, as producers of TV and film. And I believe they had the same blueprint. They graduated and they sort of went to New York or LA, and they lived in poverty or lived poorly with other artists for like years and managed to cut out some time for themselves.
Yeah, community is huge. So after Juilliard, how did you make the transition into TV and film? Was it sort of a seamless transition? And what was that like for you?
I mean, it was going to Juilliard and getting access to an agent, and then getting introduced to the TV agents at Paradigm, and then talking about generals. And I was like, I can fly out and do generals. And at the time, the independent journalism started kicking up again because of Ferguson and because of police brutality. More and more offers were being thrown my way to write. So I would use that money and I would save it up. And I would get a few $1,000s and then go out to LA, rent a car, sleep on someone's couch, and just do meetings for a week. And I would keep, you know, Excel spreadsheet of all the meetings, the people, how it went, what we talked about, and sort of mail that out, email that to my agents, stay in contact with people. And so I was doing that either within the first year at Juilliard, or in between the first and second year. I went out there at least 2 times, if not 3 times. I think one was like in between or maybe halfway through the first year. Maybe one was during the summer, and maybe another one was during the second year, usually when we had a break. And I would just go out there, do the meetings, and then come back and like write some more articles, do some more things. And I was still working for Mister at the time, writing and producing videos, so that also paid. And Juilliard gives you a $3,000 or $4,000 stipend in the fall. And then I was at National Black Theater for the I Am Soul residency, which is a few thousand, Brooklyn Arts Exchange Artist in Residency, which is a few thousand, the Dramatists Guild Fellowship, which is like 1,000. So if you begin cobbling together, you're working on 5 or 6 things where you're like, okay, my rent is $300 or $400. I'm earning $3,000 from Juilliard, and then $2,000 in the spring. And you begin like doing the math and now I need to supplement the rest with writing articles for the New Republic or Talking Points Memo.
What was it like in your first writer's room?
It was ideal. It was only 6 writers, and it was on the CBS satire Brain Dead. So I interviewed for that. I just seen Black Mirror. I was in London in the Royal Court Theatre's residency that they had for artists abroad. It was their first year of doing just artists in America, because they found like there are too many applications from America. We should do a separate one just for American artists. So I was in there with other Juilliard classmates, Tatiana Suarez-Pico, Jen Silverman. We went out there in London. I was watching Black Mirror, came back, and I saw that there was a political satire in Deadline called Brain Dead. And I'd written a play at Juilliard, Obamaology, that was a political satire. So my agent set up the meeting. I went out to Brooklyn. We talked about Black Mirror, Obamaology, and then I was hired. 20, 30 minutes, I left, got on the subway. And when I got out, there was like a ton of messages, which I was like, oh, this is a good sign. I was going from Brooklyn to Times Square. I was just going to go to Signature Theater to write, because I also had a screenplay commission that I agreed to write for a friend for a few $1,000s. I was getting started on that. I got this job. I was like, great. So I have National Black Theater still, because it's overlap from Juilliard, Brooklyn Arts Exchange, this TV job, and then the screenplay I wrote for my friend, I finished early on. So I was living this great life of having the 2 theater companies, residency, and then during the week working in TV with a room of half playwrights. So Lauren Marks, Jackie Weingold, Jonathan Tollins. And I think, how many writers? There's 6 writers. I think 5 out of the 6 of us were TV based. Peter Parnell. So yeah, 5 out of the 6 of us are playwrights. And the 6th one, Larry, was TV. So we would talk about theater all the time at the break and what we were working on, what we had seen, how, and it naturally works its way into what we do because the showrunners like theater, you know, and they're in New York City, so they go see theater. So it was an unusual room. It was a very unusual room. And it was my first room. And I was told, it's not normally like this, Oren. Like, this is really unusual. I said, what do you mean? It's like when you're in LA and you're in a room, people just talk about their cars and their house extensions and their vacations. And it's like, here we're talking about like opera, theater, like something at Film Forum we saw over the weekend. Is like, this is an unusual room. And it is unusual, but you know, coming back, working on Evil and the Good Fight, a lot of those people have returned. So the conversation is sort of the same. It's sort of the same highbrow, lowbrow mixture of art conversation with people who have a very deep background in theater, have a lot of experience in TV, and happy to be working on a TV show.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell watching it, you know, like the episode in The Good Fight about, was it the cocksucker with the, you know, in the slave play. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know, I ended up like doing a ton of reading just about that episode and the conversations around that.
Yeah, I saw that play in its 2nd preview at New York Theater Workshop. So I came back and like, what did you see over the weekend? I was like, I saw this, I saw a slave play, I saw blah, blah, blah. And we had a whole conversation. I was like, guys, you should go see that play. And people go, yeah, I'm busy. Everyone's seeing 1,000 plays. So then time passes. It becomes a huge hit off Broadway. And I'm like, you should really go see Slave Play and just maybe feel like, yeah. Another year passes and then it's on Broadway. So now we're on Evil and The Good Fight. And I was on Evil, which is downstairs from The Good Fight. And I got a message like, could you come upstairs? I was like, sure. So I like ran upstairs to The Good Fight room, which is sometimes what I do. You going between the rooms and they're like, you saw Slave Play, right? I was like, 1.5 years ago. He's like, we were thinking about an episode. I was like, yes, you should go see it first, as I've been saying for 1.5 years. So everyone, I think, went off and saw it or read it. But yeah, those are theater people. And Brain Dead has those references in there. I mean, there's pop cultural theater references like Hamilton, but there's other like little references in there to what we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, watching The Good Fight and Evil, I just feel like I'm in on a really good conversation, you know, while also being taken on this amazing ride, you know, the voices, and it's topical, but it's humorous, you know.
Yeah, people have a great sense of humor. And so Brain Dead was 2015 to 2016, and I was completing the National Black Theater play in the winter or early spring of 2016. And then I finished the Brooklyn Arts Exchange play in the spring of 2016 after 2 years. Overlap with Juilliard. And then I got a call from a theater in LA saying, hey, we want to do Obamaology. And I was like, all right, sure, go. I'm not going to be there. And then another theater called like, oh, we want to do Obamaology too. I was like, this is strange. I already agreed to have this other theater do it, but you know, not going to be there. And then I got a job on This Is Us, so I was there. But I remember being in Brooklyn, like, yeah, do it. I'm not going to see it. So yeah, that was the 2015, 2016, 2017.
So you were out in LA doing This Is Us. How long were you in LA for?
For a year, from 2016 to 2017. And This Is Us was because Brain Dead ended And I asked around and said, what other rooms are there in New York City that I could be a part of? And they're like, there are no other rooms. Like they've already started, if you're talking about Billions, or you've already interviewed for them, or blah, 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 blah. So you should consider coming out to LA. So I was like, well, I think The Good Fight's going to start. And they offered me a position on The Good Fight, and I accepted. And then there was this long delay. And there was a long delay because of production and all these other things. And my agents were like, you should just take another job. So I was like, all right. And they're like, by the way, The Good Fight's going to be in LA anyway, so it doesn't matter. I was like, oh, I didn't know. I thought it was going to be in New York. But so I was like, all right. So I read Pitch and This Is Us, which is called 36. And I was like, both of these scripts are good, but I don't know as much about baseball. So I will try to interview for This Is Us, and got hired and had a week to move out there, which is actually for TV writing a lot of time. Some people have like 2 days or a day to move out. So I was able to pack up my stuff, put it in storage. I told my person I was subletting from, like for months, like I might be leaving, I'm not sure. I'm just letting you know something's happening. And then I moved out there, and that was an experience, living in West Hollywood and working in Hollywood. And just, it is the studio experience. And as I've shared online and with other people, like I lost like 60 pounds out there. I was just so healthy, I guess.
Yeah, I remember some of your posts about going to the gym and stuff.
You go to the gym in the morning at 7 a.m. and meditate, change, go to work. Then after work, I'm like, I guess I'll go to the gym again since I'm not really seeing theater. And then there'd be like a Zumba class. It was like, I guess I'll go into that. And then that'll be another 2 or 3 hours. You'd be like, well, I guess I'll go on the treadmill and watch TV, because I didn't have live TV. I had a smart TV in the bungalow I was renting. But if I wanted to watch like sporting events or the presidential debates or whatever, I would go to the gym and just run on the treadmill after like 2 or 3 hours of working out. So you're doing that, plus LA's food options, I think in that area are a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
The weight just flies off. I mean, granted, you're working out 3 or 4 hours a day and you're eating like super healthy salads and sushi. So the weight has to fly off. Like there's no, place for it to go except evaporate. So it was a weird year when you are on a hit show, everyone wants to meet with you, and you've lost 60 pounds, and everyone's like, oh, well, it's a weird dynamic. It's a strange reality. It is a very LA reality.
Yeah, and it's interesting because those are like all of a sudden, you're in a new place. People are treating you differently. A lot of, it can be kind of, a strange experience. And I'm curious to know, meditation and Buddhism is a big part of your life. So how does that influence your writing or help you in navigating the career?
Yeah, well, I meditate every day, and I was meditating out there, and I had a bungalow to myself. So the front area in the living room was my altar. They have another altar in my bedroom. When I moved back to Brooklyn, I stayed with an artist, and I set up my altar space. But I left most of my books in storage. So I only took out the essential books to LA. When I came back to New York City, I got to take out all the books because I've taken a number of Buddhist Dharma courses, and each one has like a binder. Each one has multiple sutras and all these things. So taking that out again, but it allows me to have a center. It allows me to not get too high or not get too low, and to stay grounded in reality. It doesn't mean you don't have bad days or good days or up and down things, but you can always return to a center. You can always return to like some strong sense of base, and then some strong intention, because you start thinking like, what am I doing with my life? Well, you're working in TV, blah, blah, blah. It's like, but no, what am I doing with that? That's just a vessel. What are we using it for? Whether it's writing a play or writing a movie or working on TV, what is this for? And if it's just for money, I find that is a dead end. If it's just like, I'm doing this because it pays a lot of money, I personally can't really get motivated a lot because of that. Because for several years, I set up my life as a playwright, which is a rent of a few $100s. I set up my life specifically to keep my means and my costs as low as possible so that I could live off of under $10,000 a year in New York City. And so when you're setting it that low, and then all of a sudden you're earning a TV salary that's this high, either you develop expensive taste extremely quickly, or you begin like, all right, well, I'll save that, but like, what else do I want to do? I'm not going to be thrown out on the street. I have money, you know, now what am I going to do with this security? And that is important unless you want to have a family. But if you're just working as an artist and you hit something that pays you exponentially more than what you were expecting, then you start asking like, what am I doing this for? What is the purpose of this? And that's where meditation helps to really go in and figure out like, why am I writing this? What am I being inspired by? And to track things back.
When did you start meditating?
In 2006. So graduated from New School, and I went to a art presentation of a Tibetan Buddhist monk called Je Tsongkhapa. And Je Tsongkhapa is the founder of the Gelugpa religion, which is the people with the yellow hats, AKA the Dalai Lama. And so I went to the arts teaching. I started keeping, you know, a vow book of basic vows every day, 6 times a day on the basic principles, the top 10, and doing short little meditations around 2006. And before getting involved with Buddhism, they suggest you study all the other major religions, check out the goals, check out the strategies to achieving the goals, and then see if other people have achieved it around you. Because they're like, if it's some guy 3,000 years ago and that's it, that's a hard motivational task. If it's like, there's one person thousands of years ago who you'll never meet who got there. The rest of you, I don't know. So it's always like, is this realistic? Are people actually achieving these goals around me in the world who I can find inspiration from? Can I find an authentic teacher? Does the actual path lead to the goal? Does the path make sense? Does it build? Does it grow? And using your mind and intelligence. So wait a minute, here's a book on my makeshift altar, which is the Je Tsongkhapa, the 3 principal paths. And so these are the roots of Buddhist studies in Gelugpa tradition. You know, and if you have this, then you have all the preliminaries. You have all the preliminaries to what you need to do. You have the first path, which is renunciation. And renunciation is giving up on things that don't work. So you begin looking at the things that don't work. Money doesn't work all the time. And the rule in Buddhism is if it doesn't work all the time, then it doesn't work. That's not the real source of it. So I'm thinking about like, yeah, money doesn't work all the time. But what else works? Your career. Does career work 100% of the time as far as what you want? No, then that's not the real answer. And you start to learn to truly give up on those things as far as making you happy. That doesn't mean you don't do them. You can do them, but with a different intention. And the intention isn't the career, because the career is not going to lead to happiness or any sense of fulfillment by itself. But the career can be a vessel to get to your intention of what is actually going to work for you. The money can be a vessel to get you across the river to where you want to go. All the things, your personality, your relationships, marriage, sex, food, exercise, yoga, all these things can be vessels, but they themselves are not the thing that are going to make you happy, because if they did make you happy, they would what? They would work 100% of the time. So after renunciation, you go to having the wish, now that you know what works, you know, having the wish that everyone knows what works. You know, it's called bodhicitta, but wishing to get everyone enlightened. And then the final one is just having correct view, which is on ultimate wisdom. And so studying this for like a decade and a half in this dog-worn copy, and keeping this with me by my side, as well as other books, always reminds me of the goal. And as you can tell, because this is Tibetan Buddhism, there are a lot of lists, and there are a lot of lists within lists. It's very, very listy. It's very, very spreadsheet document, like here's the list, correct view. And then within each one of these is a bunch of other things they're talking about. And so in your mind, you always have these lists, like you're going up and down these lists and running through all these principles.
It seems like the perfect thing for a writer.
Yes.
Yeah.
To have lists, to have solid ground, to have intention, and have stuff that you're writing and debating and talking about, and not just accepting, which is one of the things in Buddhism. They said, don't believe anything someone tells you. You have to really test it out. You have to meditate or pray on it. You have to really think about, like, does this make sense? Because then you're a good follower. You're a bad follower if you just listen, go, okay, and you just go with it. It's like, no, does this make sense, and how? Why does it make sense? How can I apply this?
Yeah. And I also, in terms of like rewriting, that skill that you're using in your mind, and the presence, the ability to be present like that, to be in the room as well as on the page. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so it looks like season 5 of The Good Fight is airing June 24th, and Evil season 3 is June 30th or June 20th.
Yeah, 20th and 24th.
Super exciting. And is there anything coming up or that you're working on now that you want to share?
I mean, I'm writing a movie, but who knows how long that takes as far as getting a movie done. And then I'm writing 2 other things. There was a movie I pitched on. They got greenlit, but then I was waiting to see if there's a contract, which I'm fine because I'm writing this other movie that I already signed. And then 2 other shows. I signed a development deal with CBS. So I have these 2 other shows I'm working on to develop this summer, and then writing at least 1 play for a commission that might be announced in August. And then rewriting or working on another play that may be announced soon that might go to the West End. It's a pre-existing play. It's about adapting it or changing it around for a new version in London. So that is what it's looking like. I was looking forward to doing a month-long meditation retreat, but there are more Buddhist classes allegedly in July, so I can't do that. But maybe in August, or maybe not, maybe at the end of the year I can do one.
And so how do you, last sort of question, how do you organize your time working on multiple projects? Do you have a particular schedule that you adhere to?
I should. Usually I don't, because the past few years it's been TV, and then I just do something before or after. But now I was trying to just do one thing. And of course, I'm getting slammed with multiple things. So this morning I was doing one project. I think I'm finished with this in a little bit. I'll put it away. Then I'll go back to the screenplay. And then at night, I will work on the 3rd project. And usually I just divide it into morning, afternoon, and night if I'm really busy. So a few years ago, I was working on a musical while being on both shows and working on a museum piece. And so I would just wake up, write the 10 pages of the musical, go to work for Evil of the Good Fight, come back, switch over to the museum project, and then go back to working on the musical. And so you just divide it into elements, sections of the day. And for movies, I try to write as detailed an outline. So I have a 30-page outline. So even if I'm not feeling it, I could just plug in, like last night, it's like, just write one more scene. I was like, what is the scene about? I was just plugging in the words, and then more will come back later.
What do you do to sort of have as a palate cleanser for your brain in between the different things that you're working on? For me, I go on walks around the block if I have a little bit of time. Are there little things that you do that can kind of hit the refresh button?
Yeah, I think meditation, going for a walk. Right now, watching a lot of basketball because it's a playoff time of year. But once that's finished, I wish I liked baseball because that would be a great relaxing thing to watch, but I don't. So just going on walks and meditating or reading Dharma, reading Sutra, um, talking to people. Yeah, I should gain a wild hobby, I guess. Something fun.
And how do you stay connected socially? You know, obviously it was a challenge last year with a lot of Zooming and remote stuff, but it's so important to have that physical engagement, regardless if it's quarantine or not. So how do you balance that so you don't get too isolated in the writing?
I think social engagement is overrated because I do it, it's fine, but I posted this on Facebook. In last year, the musical I was working on got postponed because we were on quarantine, and I happened to be down in Miami at the time. So I went and stayed with my parents, and Evil began in the room. So I was on Zoom, so working with my parents, and I was seeing Zoom plays at night, and then checking in, and then our cable went down. Internet still works, but the cable went down for like 2 or 3 weeks, and I used the opportunity to watch less news and to engage with less people. And so just to wake up in the morning, meditate, do my thing, go to work. I felt amazing. I felt so good. And this was at the time of people calling me up like, Orrin, are you okay? You know, I'm like, I'm fine. What's going on? Well, a guy and George Floyd. And I was like, oh, I'm aware of George Floyd. Have you seen the video? No, I haven't seen the video. Mm-hmm. Why not? Well, you just told me what happened. Why do I want to see the video? I take that. I believe that happened. I meditate on that. I don't need to see the video. Just like Daniel Pearl years ago, who was beheaded in Pakistan. I was like, I heard about it. I was like, I don't need to see that video. I don't need to see torture or trauma. I take your word for it. Like, there's a video. I believe you. And you just move on with your life. And if people try to engage, you just let them talk. You listen. But it's like, there was also, who was the governor who got busted for sleeping with a prostitute?
Yeah. Or was that Boston or Massachusetts?
That was New York, the New York governor.
Oh, Spitzer.
Spitzer. I remember that was 2016, 2015. That happened.
Or that, yeah, 12, maybe 13.
Well, it was during the primary because I remember it was Obama and Hillary. And then the Spitzer thing popped up. So maybe before Iowa. And I was house sitting for someone and also in a meditative space where I'd wake up. I worked at New School for Jazz. I'd wake up, meditate, come back, listen to Dharma, do meditations. And there's such a peaceful level of being centered without being self-centered and being aware without being inundated. And I remember I was waiting in the old bank, which is no longer around, on 14th and 6th Avenue, that's been like dead for like several years, on that corner near the McDonald's. And I looked up at the TV and there was something about Spitzer. And then there was a picture of Spitzer, and there was a picture of a girl who was dressed in high heels, which I assume was a sex worker. And I was like, okay, got it. That's all I needed to know. I was like, Spitzer, prostitute. I was like, okay, I'm informed. It's like, but there's more. I was like, yeah, I get it. I don't need more. I was in the bank waiting, and I'm like, okay, I got the news. Then it was like, Obama's giving a speech on race. Great. It went amazing. Wonderful. Like, do you want to see it? Maybe. I don't know. Like, and because you're just living your life and not necessarily engaging with the news of the day. And so I think that reaching out to people is highly overrated. If you need to constantly reach out to people, you will never get enough and never be happy. Mm. It's just, and if you're a writer, that's a tough row because writing involves isolation. Mm. So if you're a writer who needs to reach out to people, and it's kind of like, yeah, don't be a hermit, but you have to write. You have to find a center within yourself where you can be happy. Granted, I live with my parents. I was down there, and I have a partner living with him. And so I always had someone with me the past year under quarantine. But a lot of times we just go into our rooms, just like, okay, we need quiet. And I guess I come from a family that's like that. It's like, we need quiet. So we don't have to talk all the time. And I think that's why a lot of us are writers or do stuff that involves solitary activity. Now, if you're an extrovert, there's no shame in that. If you're like, look, I'm an extrovert, I need to be around people. But I don't believe anyone's truly introverted or extroverted. I believe those are psychological labels for something we're searching for. And if you're an extrovert that needs to go to the party, I would just be like, well, why do you need to go to the party? I've been to hundreds of parties. They're very similar. Like, what's going to happen at this party that's going to be different from the other parties I've been at? That's not saying I never go to any parties anymore, but it's like, why do you need to go to this party? What do you think is going to happen at the party?
Yeah, what do you want? What's your intention? What's the expectation?
And you can actually get that. I've gotten amazing stuff by not going to a party, but going to something else. And I've gotten the same thing. Because a party is a vessel, but the intention can switch into different vessels. It can be an art exhibit. It can switch into going to a play reading. It can switch into going a walk down the street and running into people, which actually happened a lot out in LA because I lived in West Hollywood, very walking area. I would just go for a walk and people would run in. You're like, oh, hey, I wasn't looking for a party, but people were like, oh, hey, you're around. Yes, I'm here. And I feel like having a really strong intention, for lack of a better word, magnetizes you. And you become a magnet for these things to come to you rather than you running after them. Because ultimately, the ultimate truth is all those things do come from us. The nature of illusion is they appear to be outside of us and they appear to be something we have to work towards, but they actually come from deep seeds within us. So if you're really working something, you can be socially aware and completely engaged in the middle of nowhere. You could be alone and miserable in the middle of Manhattan, as many people are.
Yeah.
And feeling out of place and lost. And you could be completely connected in the middle of nowhere. Mm. Because that isn't coming that way. It's actually coming this way. And then we're seeing that projection and interacting with it. And so those are amazing things. When you have a strong intention, the thing comes to you anyway. And then you're like, oh my God, I was putting so much effort into this, like this movie I pitched. And I kind of did this half-ass pitch like a year or two ago over the phone. And it was like, oh, okay. The company greenlit it. Everyone was so excited. And then the deal fell through because the executive left. New executive came in. And I had put faith in that company. I believed, oh, there's something in that company. There wasn't. So a year later, we're in pandemic, we're in quarantine. Now people are really using Zoom. Before, I'd pitch stuff on Zoom or phone, it doesn't really work. We're like, we prefer you to fly out here. We prefer, and I'm like, why? So now people accept Zoom. Person came back, hey, you want to do this project again? Maybe try pitching it. I was like, okay. Everyone's on Zoom. I don't have to travel. I am willing to make the effort. So made the effort. And after work on Evil, I would just switch screens, take a quick break, and hit a button, and then be in a pitch meeting for the movie. Blah, 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 thank you. Take a break, hit another button, go to the second pitch meeting. And so I was doing 2 pitches after work every day for like 2 weeks. Mm. And then finally we got a deal that paid twice the amount of the initial deal I was going to accept that fell through. It took a year. The deal's better. The company's better. The possibilities of production are better. And then if it goes, it will increase, 6 times if it actually goes through. And I realized even that vessel that appears to be is not where that's coming from. Because if I start feeling depressed or anxious, I'm putting power in something else outside of me. And that is not the first principle path, which is renunciation. That's not giving up on things that don't work. That is actually re-believing in, oh, Netflix will make me, that'll be the thing, or Paramount will be the thing, or this show. That is not what's going to happen. That's not renunciation.
I love it. I love it. This has been such a great interview. Thank you so much for your time and sharing so much of yourself.